Mummy wedges, level 1. 5 things to remember. First things first, we have the word of, in, with, double commas, and a single comma. What you're going to see is extra non-essential junk information. Let's start with this one here. Tanishka, a student from Wayzata, is clever. First thing you see is double commas. That's Mr. Chung. What's between double commas is extra non-essential information and can be crossed out. That extra information is more information about the word that's right before that. You see the consistency here? It's the same thing as what you're going to see with abandoned boxcars down here. 1 comma. Mimi can genius map. That's an independent clause. A system to read fast. That's a dependent clause. A dependent clause is extra non-essential information about the word that precedes it. Genius mapping. What is genius mapping? A system to read fast. Who is Tanishka? A student from Wayzata. We can cross that out. We see that when we do, we have the noun here, Mimi, and we have the noun here, Tanishka. In 1 comma, we see that the verb over here is can genius map. That's all enclosed, encased in the independent clause. This is a dependent clause that just supports more information about the preceding word here, which is also a noun. Over here in the double commas, you see that we have the noun Tanishka here, and the verb is on the other side of the extra non-essential information. Tanishka is clever. If you look over here at the next 3 things, we have mummy wedges. Mummy wedges are words that start a prepositional phrase. With dark hair, in 11th grade, of Hopkins, Minnesota. These words start the preposition. Now, why are we categorizing all 3 things as mummy wedges? Double commas, that's Mr. Chung. And 1 comma, that's abandoned boxcar. Because, kids, it's the same thing. Over here in sentence 1, it says Sarah, that's the noun, and aced her ACT is the verb. This prepositional phrase started by a mummy wedge of is extra non-essential information about the preceding noun, which is Sarah. When we cross this out, Sarah aced her ACT. See how that's the same thing as this? Tanishka is clever because this goes back to the noun. Let's look at sentence 2. Shri in 11th grade will rock the test. In 11th grade is starting prepositional phrase with a mummy wedge in. When we cross out the mummy wedge prepositional phrase, Shri will rock the test. Look how it's all the same. Erica with dark hair is a great student. Erica is a great student. Noun, verb. Prepositional phrase gives you more information about the preceding noun, which is Erica. On ACT, the best thing to do is to just get your eyes used to seeing these things. When you see double commas, know that what's between the double commas can be crossed out to make the sentence shorter and easier to read. When you see 1 comma, you label that independent and dependent. Keep in mind that dependent clauses there are only there to support and make sure you understand the word that's right before the comma. If you understand what genius mapping is, or the word before the comma, you theoretically can just take your pencil, cross that whole phrase out to shorten up the gist of the sentence. The gist of the sentence here, the gist of the sentence here. Mummy wedges. Of, in, and with. When you see these words, circle them and cross out all the garbage that separates the noun away from the verb. That's going to shorten the sentence, and it's going to make it easier for you to read and understand and replace things in and out of there. Okay? In 11th grade, and with dark hair. Since commas are like mummy wedges, You would never put two commas in a row next to each other. So would you ever put a comma before a mummy wedge or after a mummy wedge? No, because a comma and a mummy wedge are like spacers. You saw that. So no need to put two spacers. That will help you understand comma problems. Keep in mind mummy wedges in, of, with, double commas, and single commas. Let's go ahead and take the mummy wedge concept and apply it to an actual ACT problem. We'll work with practice problem number one. Number one, we look over here at first glance, you see that we're dealing with a tense problem, ed, ing, ed again, and just present tense. Okay? But mummy wedges can help us with this problem and make it much easier. So the first thing we do is we notice that the beginning of the sentence starts up here with Y and ends over here with the question mark heads. I see that in the sentence, in the non-underlined portion, we see that we have the word with. And this is going to start a prepositional phrase because this is a mummy wedge with hair on our heads. So if we crossed out this mummy wedge, prepositional phrase, non-essential information. When we look at our answer choices, whatever we put in here has to make this a complete sentence, okay? Why is it that we are so completely obsessive? Why is it that we are so completely obsessed? Why is it that we are so completely obsessing? Why is it that we are so completely obsessioned? Right away, using our ears, we can cross out this one, and obsessing with what? This is incomplete. We've got it down to the correct two answer choices, A and B, obsessive or obsessed, okay? Then if you look over here, since we got rid of this stuff that's not really part of the sentence because it's a mummy wedge, we go down to the next part of the sentence. It says millions of dollars are spent. What tense is that? Past. So here, answer choice A is obsessive, that's present, and B ends with an ed, obsessed, that's past tense. Past tense with past tense puts the answer choice right in our lap, answer choice B. The whole concept here is this, kids. Sometimes you will use mummy wedges to help you get rid of some of the answer choices and then reduce it down to two, and you'll use another rule. Remember, this is English grammar for the ACT, so it's a conglomeration of different things that you're being asked. In this particular case, we used wedges to reduce the sentence length to make it easier for us to get it down to two choices, and then we used another rule. Let's take a look at another problem dealing with mummy wedges. It's problem number 48. 48 is right here, and the beginning of the sentence starts up here with many, and the end of the sentence here is ending with the word sides. Putting a combination of rules together, we learned in Rainforest Review Video 3, Hypnotizing the Chupacabra. That deals with fanboys. If you look up here, we see that we have a comma after entrance and a fanboys. That tells us right away that this up here has to be an independent clause. Many lawsuits today regulate a contest sponsor's responsibility to the entrance. That's an independent clause. Since we're dealing with the second part, or the second clause, has to be an independent clause as well. So what can we do? We can cross out the first one because that's not what the question is asking us about. We already know it's used correctly. Then from video 3, you saw that my suggestion for fanboys was A, cross out the independent clause in the beginning, and then B is to get rid of the fanboys word, put your finger over it to cross it out. Now, we know that the reason we do that is because sometimes those fanboys words make the independent clause on the back end there sound a little bit weird. Right away, we know that when we do this, we have to have an independent clause. So if you come over here and you look at your answer choices, you know right away that whatever you choose here has to make this a complete sentence. All right? In this problem here, they're all complete sentences, so we won't worry about that. I just quickly mention it here, okay? The second thing that we do is when we look over here and get rid of those sentences in the beginning and we analyze this just here, we know right away we see a mummy wedge right here, the word with. that tells us that this underlying portion is non-essential information about what precedes it, which is what the courts are filled with. Now look, courts are filled, okay? That is containing a noun and a verb and is a complete sentence or independent clause. You see how when you cross out that mummy wedge there, it's just so much easier for you to see it, okay? Here's your wedge. So let's ask ourselves, since this is more information about what courts are filled with, let's ask ourselves, what are courts filled with? F says no change, lawsuits. Are lawsuits courts filled with lawsuits? Yes. G, yes, that's true. H, lawsuits, yes, those are all true. J, non-compliance. Right away you see that courts are not filled with non-compliance. They're filled with lawsuits. We can cross that out right away. Now, if you look over here, this is a quick introduction to mummy wedges level 2. Mummy wedges level 2 tells us that we have this mummy wedge here, the word on both sides. So when you ask yourself, what is on both sides? Is it asserting or is it non-compliance? Or think of it this way, non-compliance on both sides. That's why we're having a lawsuit, because people are not agreeing. Non-compliance means we're not agreeing with the other person. You see what I just did there? Because of this word mummy wedge on, we know that this is more information about what precedes it. So it's either non-compliance or it's asserting. Since it's not asserting, both of those answer choices can be knocked out right away. It's going to come down to answer choice F, or it's going to be G. Now, let's go ahead and use that mummy wedge concept again. If you look over here in answer choice F, we have the word with, which is a mummy wedge about what they're asserting. So are they asserting with non-compliance, or are they lawsuits asserting? Asserting means like you're putting forward or you're kind of like pushing or something like that. So do you push with non-compliance, or is it a lawsuit that's pushing? When you think about it, just kids, you see how easy this is? Use mummy wedges to your advantage. This here is going to define the word that's right before it. And in this case, answer choice F, no change. It's not defining asserting. G, for problem number 48, mummy wedges, kids.